back to the agenda. Now we'll welcome Tristan and Armin talking about Solarisbank's core banking. With two of them are with Solarisbank from the very beginning, the very first days that they have witnessed the growth of Solarisbank with under 30 people to now we have over 300 people. So I cannot find any better person than Tristan and Armin to talk about this topic. So the stage is all yours.
Okay,
Yes,
great. Great. So this is also my first remote meetup. Really looking forward how this will work out. As Ning mentioned, I joined Solarisbank when it was not even Solarisbank. It was 7 people in Finley, the company builder, when it was just a project, and we thought about, okay, how could a bank look like? Maybe Armin, you can introduce yourself.
I joined a bit later. When the company was coming out of stealth, Peter posted on some channel and it was like, oh, they want to build a bank. That looks really interesting. And you have to have a hobby in order to join. So that looked weird. But still, like I came and it was a nice chat with Peter and I decided to join as well. Has been some time since then.
Peter was, by the way, the CTO back then of the company.
Yeah, I forgot to say. Yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience, like people that we used to work with. So hi guys and girls.
That's true. There are a lot of people working with us or work with us. So yeah, a bit about myself. So I'm working for Solarisbank for over 5 years now, approaching the 6th year. Well, I have roughly 10 years experience in the financial services sector, half of my career as a consultant, half of my career in Solarisbank. I work both as an engineer and a product owner, so I'm in between the functional and technical world, and now I'm mainly responsible for keeping our domains clear from a functional perspective, and also having an efficient architecture at the end, that we're not wasting too many resources on building something twice or building it in the wrong direction. That brings me to the start of the whole thing. As I mentioned, I joined when it was in Finley, and there was also a time when this idea of starting a bank back then, specifically for the startup economy, came up. And well, this banking as a service, what we currently know and where we are in this sector was not a thing. No one would have noticed this as a good sector to start a business in. So that was quite interesting for us because it opened up the opportunity to kind of define this sector as a company. And well, with 7 people, it's quite a challenge to start a bank. There are a lot of forms you have to fill out and hand in and sign. Then it takes a long time to get the banking license. So where to start? 7 people I was the first tech person in this team. So basically a half of a developer because I was working 5 years as a consultant. And the second developer joined only 2 months after. So there are so many questions when you start a bank, like on the banking side, well, what products do you want to offer? What should be your clients? Obviously, you're a bank, so you're dealing with other people's money, so you have to be compliant and it has to be also secure. And one primary objective from the banking and business side was we have to come to the market as early as possible to also get a bit of feedback on our business model, or the business model we think that will work out eventually. And on the tech side, especially with almost no resources, okay, what should be the MVP? What could you deliver and what actually delivers the value to our customers, to our partners? And one of the big decisions was also, okay, what do we make ourselves and what do we have to buy in the beginning? And well, this is a tricky one because I mean, there's a perfect world where you can just build everything yourself and you can just decide what you do and you have full control. And there's this other world where you just buy a service and you have very little control and you always rely on a third-party provider. And well, it's a complex domain, banking. You're dealing with other people's money. The scope for us was not really clear. So what should be the products? What should be the MVP? And well, no to very little resources. Well, as a whirling company, well, we could have said, well, we do it ourselves, everything from A to Z. But this, well, after considering this for a second, this was not the best idea, because we had to consciously invest our resources into what brings the most value in the beginning. So no, we're not building everything ourselves. In 2016 or 2015, 2016, we better go with an approach to say, okay, well, what's making the difference for us as a bank in the industry? So how can we have an edge on the competitors like Deutsche Bank or Commerzbank or well, you name it? There are over 1,000 banks in Germany. So what makes us special? And well, our decision was, okay, we have to focus on the maximum value for partners. And well, the banks out there, they were built on an older tech stack. And this was not, I mean, if back then, I mean, Google was already a thing, all the APIs, you were able to integrate Google Maps with an easy API, but the banking world mostly relied on, if you're lucky, SOAP interfaces or file interfaces. You just get a file, you process a file, and you send another file. And our main objective was to provide a compliant API, because also we're not working with regulated entities, we're working with startups. So we have to make sure that everything is compliant from banking perspective. We wanted to bridge between this old and new world. So even though our backend systems were SOAP-based, we want to have a RESTful API. And one objective was also, okay, we're starting from zero, but we want to extend our product offering as quick as possible to serve as many partners as possible. And the last objective was, okay, we want to get in a feedback loop. So we want to get feedback from the market also to adjust our strategy. And we had to be very smart on the investment of resources, because, well, there were just a few resources and there was no time to waste on lower level processes which are available to source on the market. And in 2016, our infrastructure pretty much looked like is shown on the left side. It's a bit simplified, but our core product was an identity product. So we send people through video identifications and post-ident, and a digital banking product, which well, is offering APIs to manage accounts and initiate payments. And we had the big building block, an integrated system, a third-party core banking provider, which took care of payment interfacing to the outside world, reporting, and also accounting and making sure that everything is compliant. And this was connected to the outside world via SEPA and SWIFT on the bank identification code, or BIC, which you probably know, which is our primary BIC, SOBKDEBB. And we had roughly 10 third-party providers. So everything was kind of a small scope still. But after a couple of months in 2016, we already saw, okay, there are some shortcomings to this approach where we just source everything on the core layer. And then we thought, okay, how could we make things actually better? And not better by 10%, but significantly better, like 10 times or 100 times. So the challenge, and a couple of people participated in this, was, okay, how would we envision a core banking system platform which could serve millions of customers and also scaling agnostic to geography? Like, it should not matter if it's in Spain, in Germany, or even outside of Europe. And well, the outcome reads very simple, but actually it's super tricky. So we have to, the outcome was we have to change how we approach things, like especially around payment processing, because those are the products where you usually see a customer demand of an immediate feedback. Like, if you transfer money, you expect this money to be booked right away. But also, we don't want to build everything ourselves. Still in our target picture now, we don't want to build everything ourselves. Like, there are providers that are best in class where we could not get a significant edge on those providers. And this is something where we said, okay, this we can still source. We just have to be very cautious what providers we choose. And well, here I would hand it to Armin, who can speak a bit about the tech part of things, how we approach this from the tech side.
Yeah, thank you, Tristan. The thing is, like, Tristan and I are going to talk about a lot of things, and we are sometimes going to clash about these things and speak about from different perspectives. So yes, we when I joined in 2016, I realized this is not a bank, not a classical bank. We are a tech company, and we happen to have a banking license. But the thing is, if you take a look at the classical banking offerings, tech in a traditional bank has just a supporting function. So it enables the banking, but it's hidden away from the customer. For us, it's different. For us, tech is the part of the offering that we are giving to our partners. It's not hidden away, it's right there for everyone to see. So it is very important. Like traditional banks often have bad user experience because they try to hide the complexities of the system from the customer. I mean, they are right to do so, but they are just not born with this technology in mind. And we kind of were a different company. So moving on, when I joined, I realized there's a decent setup that we have. We can move really fast and we can deliver features really fast. We had continuous integration. We had continuous delivery with a bit of a twist. We'll talk about this a bit later. And everything was containerized back in 2016 already. I mean, the containers were like all the hype at the time, but only modern cool companies were using them. And I came to this company and everyone was like, yeah, everything is in container, that just works. It was really cool. Like you could sit down first day and code something and push it to GitHub and deploy it the same day. It worked. We were delivering things really fast. We had, like for a very, very small company, we had like dozens of deploys during the day, which was for a bank, which has like a deploy once every quarter. This is unheard of. But at least it was in 2016. Things are changing these days, and other companies or other banks are getting there. So we had fast and short release cycles. We had increasing numbers of daily deploys, and this is all normal for a modern startup. But at the same time, we can't just break things. I mean, we are a startup and we are a tech startup, but we are also a bank and we are in a regulated industry and we are working with other people's money. So we had all of these things on top of this. So it's automated testing, unit integration end to end. And for us, like 4i is like a lot of companies use 4i principle, like to approve pull requests and stuff like this. But for us, this is a regulation at the same time. So everything we do has to be verified by at least one other person. And so for us, it became part of the culture. So everything we do, in any case now, like pull requests, operations, and everything else gets verified by at least one other person. And we built this into our systems, which is pretty cool. And we also were running our own infrastructure. And this is a bit weird because the problem with banking, and this is why we can't go around and do whatever we want, we couldn't get on the public cloud. So in order to run a bank, you have to have a verified and certified infrastructure provider. And this did slow us down a bit until some time later, actually way later, we were actually quite limited with the things we can use. We couldn't just pick up things off the shelf and deploy them just like that. It has to be approved and verified by our infrastructure. Or otherwise the risk would have been taken by the team, and this is a bit tricky in the industry that we operate in. Nevertheless, we used what we had and we moved forward. Other than that, we had a multi-stage setup, and I'm coming back to this continuous integration part. Every release, like we could release several times a day, but releases to production had to be approved by, and still have to be approved by product owners. So this is the 4i principle that we were talking about. And so we were deploying to multiple stages all the time, and we were having actually daily multiple releases approved by product owners. And this was actually functioning really good. We were delivering feature, we were giving our customers our ever-increasing offerings, and we had a really good tech setup, and we were able to deliver really fast and in a quick and a very reliable manner. I mean, I think our partners were very happy. Even at the time, we were a very small company, like 40, 50 people at least, approximately. But as usual, this wasn't the it for us. At some point, we realized, like, offering services to companies that we are serving, our partners, means offering services to the fast-growing companies. And in turn, we are supposed to grow at least as fast as they are, and they are growing really fast at the same time. So we had this one issue, and this one issue was our third-party providers. And we started pretty early hitting the limits of services they were providing, because, like, core banking, which we are actually talking today about, climbed very fast at the top of the headaches we had. This was not a huge deal. We found our way around it, and we were able to deliver services to our customers or our partners very reliably still. But the problem was, in the background, we saw this problem. And for software engineers, this was a really big headache. The thing is, this best-in-class provider was not built for online banking. It was built for offline. If you have a branch somewhere and you're a bank and you serve your customers, we were not that kind of bank. We were trying to serve millions of people. And for us, this kind of didn't scale. So usually, if you want to build something very fast, as a software engineer, you go and use integrated development framework. I come from a Ruby world originally, and I've been building Ruby stuff for at least 10 years. And in Ruby world, we have this framework called Rails. It's awesome. You just put it together, you few commands, and you can have a running application within 15 minutes. And it works really good. And so these frameworks, they are really great tools, and they give us a lot in exchange for a degree of control. And the more integrated the solution is, the less control software engineers have on the way things are done. And at the same time, they have to perform less work in order to get to the results. And this is actually not a bad thing. It's a lot of companies have been started in this principle with these kind of frameworks. But and most of the time, most companies do not need this level of control anyway. That is, unless you're working on something really successful. You see, successful things have this nasty habit to always manifest what is known as problem of more or problem of scale. And this is not isolated to tech. This is present in everything, manufacturing, organizations. I mean, rules change at scale. Now, having an integrated core banking solution, for me at least, feels similar. It works great until it doesn't. The good thing is, going back to our situation, yeah, my kid is here. So we were able to mitigate initial issues and find a way to utilize the service provider more efficiently at the end. But as Tristan mentioned, with our moonshot thinking, we knew we needed something better in order to thrive long term. Something that can grow with us as much as we need. Something more integrated into our system. So, and this is not something new, and we didn't discover the wheel. Better vertical integration is all around us. I mean, if you take a look at the recent examples, Apple producing their own silicon is a vertical integration of sorts. Tesla producing batteries or Tesla building factories is a vertical integration of sorts. So taking control of something critical for your business is a not natural thing for a company to do anyway. And we decided at some point that we might need to build our own core banking system. And what is a core banking system? Tristan, do you know?
Well, yes. So the question is always, okay, how do you define the core banking world? Because if you would ask 20 banks, I guess you would probably get 25 answers because it usually depends on the provider. Some providers see core banking as this integrated solution, including regulatory reporting, general ledger. I mean, banks are doing weird things in core banking. What we define as core banking and what we build ourselves is the component that keeps track of payment accounts, like accounts that you use on a daily basis, where you send money out, where you get money onto, and all the extensions to this. Like there are hundreds of products you can build around payments and those payment accounts. And if you compare our two infrastructures from 2016 to 2020, things got more complex on every level. We have way more external providers, like 10 times more external providers we have to integrate. We added a lot of products. We improved a lot of products. Also within those products, it got more diverse. While the loan in the very beginning was there, but it was definitely not an extensive product landscape. In 2020, we have quite different kinds of loans. I mean, everything is still based on the same fundamental assumptions, but the products are different. And we did not want to work on the loan side because the loan side there are a lot of providers on the market that are doing a pretty good job in providing a loan ledger, a system that is calculating interest, a system that is managing those products where customers don't have the expectation that they get an immediate feedback on the thing that is happening in the core layer. So this is an opportunity where you can actually have still a real-time feeling to the customer, while it doesn't make any difference for the customer if some things take a bit longer on the foundation. The second part of core banking is this payments world. And in the payments world, especially coming to those instant payment situations that's now getting some traction in the market, you can see that customers just expect that within seconds, money is transferred, be it internally or externally. And I mentioned in the beginning that I'm now also responsible for a clear domain cut. And one of the tasks in this transition was also to clearly define which system should actually have which responsibility. Like, do we want to have this integrated solution where one system does everything, maybe nothing really good, but everything, still okay? Or do we want to have very specific systems where you can really choose from the best-in-class providers? Like for general ledger, for reporting, we built our own data platform, which we use for internal reports and also to cater those external systems. And we also wanted to have a smooth transition between the old world and the new world. And that's why we decided for our own core banking, we start with a secondary infrastructure in the first place. So we said, well, it has to be a greenfield approach because we want to build something that is not influenced by maybe some shortcomings we have in the old system. We want to have something from scratch that serves us well also in the coming years. And that's why we set up a second external address, which is our second big code, which you can see in the B2 at the end, and also in your IBAN you can see it if there's if the sort code is ending on 1 instead of 0. And this system we built was built with better scalability in mind. We want to be way more efficient. We want to bring down the cost per unit on this system. We also wanted to serve our internal stakeholders better with increased velocity on new product developments, because suddenly we got way more control over those low-level functions in the system. And obviously we want to have a zero downtime deployment. So say goodbye to every extensive maintenance window we sometimes announce nowadays, where it takes 1, 2, 3 hours to update our core system. We want to get rid of third-party dependencies on that layer, because this is the layer where the customer really gets the feedback, an immediate feedback. And having this in our own hands, we thought it's a great opportunity to also improve this customer expectation. And we also wanted to open up APIs to those lower level processes, because for now they are kind of hidden in a third-party provider, and we would have requested those functionalities from them. But now we can build it ourselves. And looking forward, we also want to have a system that enables our international expansion, be it in Europe or beyond Europe. And there are a lot more things that we can now do, which I cannot all mention, which will probably come in the next months, and especially after the migration. And well, Armin will talk a bit about what is our MVP and how did we approach this in the beginning? How, from a tech side, how did we build this? So, Armin.
Yeah. I mean, we cut this talk a lot because we had too many slides at some point. So if you're interested in some detailed technical aspects, do stay and do come and ask. We'll try to share as much as we can. Yeah, so the minimal viable product. So essentially, at some point, we decided, yeah, we need to build this thing. So, and at the time, like we had some general idea what we want to build. So we wanted to build something that scales indefinitely and can handle as much load as we put to it and is fast and everything. Like the wish list was really, really large. And we had to first figure out how to do it. So essentially, it started by 3 engineers coming to our then CTO and pitching a product and saying, yes, we are running a bank and we need to build something and we need to keep all of the records that we are maintaining our system. So every change that we are doing needs to be recorded. We have no idea how to build it yet. We have some idea how it could look like in the future, but we need to figure out something. So, and we got some time to do it, and back and forth, doing some experimentation, we came up with a product, and this was actually working pretty well. And the first thing we did was not actually handling money. We were handling how do we manage the accounts, like metadata of the accounts. And once this has proven to be working and the architecture was kind of set, we said, okay, now we have an idea what we want to build, and it's going to look something like this, what's on the screen, hopefully. It's very slow. So essentially, it's a very high-level overview of our distributed architecture. So we wanted a system which is not a huge monolithic thing, where if you touch the left side of it, the right side goes slow. And we wanted a system that we can like pile many services and use multiple persistence components all over the place as much as we needed. So we came up with this concept. Well, we didn't come up with it. We used this concept. It's called event sourcing, where we would source every change in the system to something that's called event store. And then we had different kinds of components reacting to it. And I will not go much into detail right now. We can speak about it later after the talk if you are interested. But essentially, we gained the ability to distribute the system highly. So essentially, we got a lot of out of it. And I will just go quickly over the types of components that we have in the system in case people are interested. So we distribute this, use this concept called CQRS, where you separate your read and write endpoints, but not just at the endpoint level, but also on a complete system level. So if we want something to be done, we issue a command and system processes a command. And at the same time, once the command is processed, it will project the result of execution of this command into some sort of a projection, which is completely decoupled from this command. So the system that is serving the results can continue to serve it without affecting the performance of any other component. It also increases resilience because these are the components that independently operate. And in case, unlikely case some of these go down, we can reliably continue operating at the other part of the system as if nothing has happened. And then inside the system, we have a lot of processes that are happening and which are kind of hidden from the partner, because we are moving money from one point to another to the third in order to pass different kinds of checks. Because banking is not so simple as it looks on the first look. Anyway, this is why we came up, like, I don't want to go much into it because we are kind of running out of time. So I just want to now mention a few benefits that we gained from the system itself. So first of all, we acquired complete control of the system. Like, we had ability to scale it the way we wanted to scale it. And our new system became a source of truth. So this was a big deal for us. And the second point was, like I mentioned, so now that we could separate reads and writes, we've realized like 99.9% of the stuff that we deliver is reads. So we can focus really hard on these reads and make it really, really fast. Writes are still very important, but we can do it separately. And this now gave us something that we wanted, but couldn't really hope to get it, like some our wish list. We have essentially, I can't say infinitely scalable, but very, very scalable system. And the last thing that we gained was the resilience. And I mentioned this before. So parts of the system can go down and no one will notice. And we have multiple services operating at the same time for every one of these components. So most of the time, like even if something happens, we recover very, very fast and we are back. And no one, I mean, we of course report this, and every time something happens, we investigate very, very thoroughly. But in most cases, it works really, really well. Anyway, those are the benefits. And moving on, we come to the present time. And at the moment, we have a highly distributed, very resilient system. We moved from this internal cloud or internal private cloud to the public cloud because after a couple of years of negotiations, we were able to move and sign all of the required legal work to move there. And so now we have Kubernetes, we have SNS and SQS. Our services are using mostly asynchronous communication, and cross-domain we use synchronous communication because we've realized it's kind of easier. Again, if interested in the details, come talk to me later, and I will, with this, just move back and give it to Tristan.
Yeah, that was a technical aspect, but where do we stand now from a business perspective? We have a couple of partners already on our new system, which is live since January, February, and the new partners we announced in the past were basically starting on those on this new system, like Vivid or Samsung. They are running on the new system already, and also the new system is in some aspects already taking more than 50% of our total volume. Like we have, for example, the STDs, so SEPA direct debits. We have, I think, 50-60% already on the new system, and we see, well, it really increased the easiness of processing those things. We see almost zero issues. We see a huge improvement in processing times. So we see that actually it was the right decision to take this in our hands, also reacting on new feature requests. And looking into the future, I mean, it should not stop here because we still have partners on the old system, which we try to serve as best as we can. But next year there will be a migration. So we will actually take over what is now on the old system into the new system. And this, we thought a lot about the process, and this will, this is easier due to the nature of the system to just have a migration because for the most part, we can have a gradual migration. And new partners are in almost every case starting on the new system already. But the future looks good because once the migration is done, we can fully focus on extending the feature set of our system. Like we can look into SEPA instant payments. We can look into features that enable even more interesting API products for our internal stakeholders that they ultimately can then offer to our partners who can offer it to the end customers. So there are a lot of interesting things coming in the next year on this system. And I would go over to, if it would work, to the questions, if you have any.
I just want to add something. I mean, at the end, this was, no, this is fine. You can go to questions. In the end, I just want to mention, like, the core banking team that we are part of. We have at the moment two small teams working on this product, and it's a tremendous achievement to build such a complex system with this small. Like it began as an extremely small team, and it's not much bigger right now. We have 2 teams of 6 people each. We are onboarding a 3rd team pretty soon. but to build something like this with that many people, and to build a system this good with that many people is a truly magnificent thing, and it was the best system I ever built. So I just want to give kudos to everyone in the core banking. You guys and girls you rock. Now we can ask questions. So there's a question from Javed. What are the fintech verticals that your core banking system does not support yet? Example, investments, is it supported? Tristan, you want to take this?
What kind of investments? So if we're talking about securities trading, no, this is not part of core banking. If you talk about interest-paying products, it also depends on what kind of interest-paying products. If it's a short-term call money account, in theory, it would support this. If it's a long-term investment account that pays interest, it would probably go more to the external system.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to understand, like, we are supporting, well, core banking is like basic piping. It is just the basic systems. Solarisbank is building a higher level of abstractions over this core banking system, and we are supporting several different verticals, but at the same time, it's not necessarily that these verticals are directly in the core banking system. Does this answer the question, Javed? Okay, thank you. There's a question from Alexei. How do you balance between the fast delivery and security? So as a core banking system, we are operating deep within the internals of the company. So our system is not at all available to the outside parties. That is not to say we are not adhering to the security. So security was kind of, we have a company level, we have a security team that takes care of this, but we made sure that we are following the company directives regarding all of the security and how we are implementing it. Does this answer your question, Alexei? Okay, thank you. So what language and framework you use to develop the core banking system? Like when I talked about frameworks, I personally don't have a big preference to use frameworks. I'm not a big fan of integrated things. So we decided for the core banking payment system, no, we didn't make our own. So we use Go. Go has this tradition as a language that you just use features that language gives you. And we don't build our own frameworks because we are, like in the beginning, we experimented a lot because we were trying to figure out what was the best way to move forward. And there is no best way. There are different ways. So we have, like these days, we have uniform services, which are very small. They do their job. But I wouldn't call what we have a framework. It's a collection of tools that we use in order to combine them in a certain way and to get some results. So yeah, it's mostly Go, and there is no framework. Okay, thank you, Sebastian.
That was more business related. So
yes,
lending, risk, underwriting, and collection architecture. That's a good question, but this is a higher level workflow API or product, which is developed by our lending unit or balance sheet unit. This is probably a topic for its own meetup. I cannot really answer the details on that. It's not part of the core banking system.
Okay, how about compliance and regulations?
Well, we are banks, so number one priority is, we have to be auditable, right? Because at the end of the day, KPMG or EY or whoever else comes and says, okay, you want to see that everything is compliant, and you did not just swallow some cents or euros or billions, or you're missing 1.9 billion. So
that would be bad.
This would be bad. So this is, I mean, the architecture we've chosen is in that respect quite nice for auditors, because we have a journal or an audit log, because every event is kind of in order and we can track it down, and we're not changing events, so it's immutable. So something could go wrong, but it would at least be documented in the persistence layer. And apart from that, well, we as a bank, we have a lot of compliance and regulations we have to fulfill. Like everything has to go properly, has to go into reporting streams. It ultimately has to end up on our balance sheets. So we have to make sure that we are complete if we, especially if we hand over data points between systems. And this is where data platform comes in as an extension to our core banking layer, which is gathering all those data points and then transforming them to be delivered to third-party systems.
Okay, I mean, we also have this thing that's called continuous compliance or something like that. I mean,
compliance is code.
Yeah, compliance is a code. Anyway, moving on. So from Roman, the question was, I mentioned SQS and SNS. How did you solve ordering of events while distributing them across services? This is a really good question. Yes, so at the beginning, we actually didn't use SNS and SQS because we were not on AWS. We were running on our private cloud, and we were quite limited with the stuff we could run. We actually had to negotiate really hard to get a Postgres and to run it, because everything we were supporting was at the time MySQL and Redis, and if you want anything else, you have to support it. And we didn't really want to be wakened in the middle of the night while running our test infrastructure. So we kind of said, okay, this Postgres thing has pub sub, so it can publish messages and it can notify that things are happening, and services can subscribe to them. So, but this did pose a problem because this is a fan-out mechanism. So we can, in the beginning, we kept a cursor. So every service would keep a cursor where it is. And Postgres can manage so essentially, whenever something interesting happens, it would send a notification to all of the interested parties that there is something happening on this entity with this identifier. And then it would go and it would read all of the events that have happened on this specific identifier. So we didn't have to keep the order. So they would just go in the order as they happened. Which is a really good thing, because when we switched to SQS and SNS, we've realized, first of all, ordering only matters within the scope of the identity of this thing. In our case, we call it aggregate ID, although we are not aggregating that much. But everything that is in scope of this aggregate only matters in the scope of this aggregate. Transactions can happen in a different order, but at the end, if you have systems that are capable of publishing, like producing a deterministic state, it will all come pretty well at the end. So, but still, every time we publish something on the SQS and SNS, we realize it can come at a different order, even within the scope of this aggregate. So we still do the thing where if the reactor is reacting to this specific message, it would go to the event store and read all of the messages for this identifier in order. Does this answer your question, Roman?
Completely, thanks.
Okay. So maybe how about what about the Bitwala partnership?
Yeah, we cannot talk about individual partnerships. I'm also
okay. How about loan started the old system and move everything to a new system and kill them? I'm curious, how are you going to maintain them? Can you support? So Tristan, please, this is for you.
Yeah, we are going to migrate them into the new system.
How do you see yourself in comparison to the core banking providers? Like, I don't know, I never use
That's Mambu. So for terminals, I can say, well, you order the tire and they send you the car. So I know that they're in this transition to also smaller services, but as far as I know, if you buy terminals, you get the full system, even though you just want to have the payments part or just the lending part or general ledger part. And Temenos, as far as I know, is not really present in the German market. Mambu is a good question, because I think N26 is using Mambu. I think our system is more efficient because it has a different focus. Mambu is a system that comes from microloans, micro-lending, and they are perfectly capable also to handle current accounts. But we have, at least with our own development, we have a slightly different focus. We want to be as efficient as possible on payment accounts.
Okay, I hope this answers the question. So I'm gonna just move on because we are kind of running out of time a bit. Anyway, how did you build the data platform? Which tools, etc.? I'm not part of the data team.
A data platform started on AWS. I have to admit, I'm not exactly sure what we are using there. I mean, not all things. Cannot answer. Okay, so Andreas Finger? Hi, Andreas. Long time no see. How did you solve exactly once delivery, or at least exactly once execution? We didn't. I mean, things can be delivered multiple times. That's fine. System is deterministic. It will recognize that this happened, and it will project the data or do the data how they need to be delivered. In the beginning, we did a few times catch few of these things. And this did leak out externally. And in banking, you have the procedure to solve this. So we did detect this, which is important part, and we did reverse it, which is another important part. So we always have our T's crossed and our I's dotted. We take very, very good care that everything is consistent, at least as the balance of the ledger goes. If you solve exactly once delivery, I would want to know how. Me too. I heard something about vector clocks, and also I heard that Google has this atomic clock a couple of years back that they can do it. I still don't trust it. So anyway, what's your course banking most distinctive USP towards other market solution, and do you expect competitors? Well, like I will just say before handing to Tristan, we built this thing for ourselves. We are not selling it, at least not yet. That's Tristan, true. Do you have anything to add? So it's surprisingly not technical. I think competitors are I mean, if we talk about competitors as banks, I think they drown in politics. Could a Deutsche Bank develop a similar system? Of course they could, but how likely is it that they will focus on this? So I mean, our strength is that we have a startup mindset. Like this is something you cannot easily copy into a corporate. Okay, nice. Okay, Tristan knows much more about this. We mentioned that our platform should work regardless of country or region. Did we? How do you handle bookings in a different region at the same time, especially with high latency? Well, at the moment we are operating purely in Europe and purely in Germany for now, and I think in France since day before yesterday. So that's a tricky question. So I'm not under the assumption that it will be the same system everywhere. Let's say if we expand beyond Europe, because also some local regulations require us to split the data physically. If we talk about Europe, I'm not sure what the exact reason for the question is. I mean, high latency is not really an issue in Europe. Well, to be honest, I don't think we had this on our table yet because it's not our current problem. When it becomes, I'm quite confident we will solve it. I think the more tricky one is not technically. It's not a technical question. It's more a functional question. Like how would a payment system network look like in another legislation? I mean, Europe it's easy because everything is SEPA, and this problem is kind of solved for Europe. But if you go to any other country, there might be an established system that is similar to SEPA, like Japan, or there might be probably 2000 systems like in the US, well, it really depends on the country. But I mean, the system itself, I mean, booking from one account to another should be the same in every country. Then the question is the interfacing.
Okay, we have one more question and then we will be wrapping up. And your core system be applied to other financial system countries across the world? If so, how do you code in the regulation? So this was, I guess, just mentioned by Tristan. Is there anything you would like to be expanded, Manuel?
I could add something here. We showed on one slide that the system landscape is kind of modular. So the market specifics often on the downstream systems like the general ledger systems or the reporting system. And this would be an integration effort into a local provider.
Okay, I guess we can wrap this part up now.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming, and Tristan and Armin to give us such a insightful presentation of our core banking. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to share a link with you. If you're interested in joining Solarisbank, please visit that link. And Manny, are you there? Are you going to tell us something about next event? Okay, I guess, yeah, he's away. So our next event will be talking about fintech journey into the cloud from the depth of point of view. So stay tuned and hope you have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and listening to us.